Hey there, welcome back to Access Granted, powered by Abler. I'm your host, Mike Iannelli, and today we're diving into a conversation with Dave Shepley. As a development strategist at DesignHammer, Dave brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table when it comes to web development and accessibility. In part 2 of our episode, we'll continue to explore Dave's insights and perspectives on the importance of accessibility in digital experiences. So sit tight and let's jump right into it. So back in the day, it's like, remember privacy policies back in the day? It kind of reminds me of that.
Yep.
Do you have a privacy policy on data collection? No, I don't. I'll just go stake one from someone else's. It's the same thing. So instead of people actually putting in the commitment and the effort to inclusion and access, they're saying, well, we care, put an accessibility statement on our site. So the first place people go with that
it's
disability.
not their accessibility statement.
It's
one
not.
They've copied and pasted it.
Exactly.
I mean, you Google accessibility statement.
There it is.
And you paste it, and it's in your footer, and
Yeah.
you're covered.
You're covered, which again, that is
Air quotes
so,
for those listening.
Yes, so, there's a good air quotes. But so frustrating because when individuals that show up to the site and they are having trouble, where do they go? They go to the accessibility statement. And so imagine being on a site that you're wanting to shop, or you're wanting to buy food, or you're wanting to go bank, whatever you're wanting to do, and you're lost and you're stuck. Now, something that takes, and I'll tell you, if something's supposed to take me a minute to do it and it takes me more than a minute, I start to get frustrated after about 3 or 4 minutes. You see, it starts to bake in after a while. If it's supposed to take me this long and it's not, I'm frustrated. Imagine going in, getting frustrated, now going and saying, hey, I've got an accessibility statement. I'm going to go check it out and see what I can do to find accommodations, to figure out what's going on. And it's fraudulent.
Right.
And nothing has been done. So these accessibility statements state that we care about folks with disabilities. We care about access. We care about inclusion. We've made a commitment to doing it by doing these things. We're working with an organization that's helping us. That's what it is. Like I said earlier, years ago, I didn't even think about it. But it wasn't something to think about years ago. It should have been.
Right.
But it wasn't.
You didn't have awareness.
Didn't have awareness. Now I have the awareness, but now we all have the awareness. I mean, this isn't new anymore. People are talking about this a lot.
Right.
And if you know about it and we're still not doing anything about it, what does that say?
I say this all the time, like your web presence now is your front door. COVID it was happening anyway. COVID kicked that wide open, right?
Yes.
People don't go to stores anymore. People are less likely to sit across the table and, break bread like this. I think even those who go to church, I think more people are doing it online now because it's just easier.
Which is also terrifying.
So everything,
yeah.
If everything's online, then everything, needs to be tested for accessibility. Because imagine trying to go to that service or whatever, like you're searching, and you can't even get access to, that.
I know that you guys have been thinking about it, and you guys have been our biggest supporter from day one. And we've got, again, some great agency partners, which we are so grateful for. Some folks up in Pittsburgh, Level Agency, I'm very grateful for. Adamus Media, I'm grateful for. Obviously, DesignHammer. These agencies are really, truly leading the way. And I mean that. I mean, as an agency, you don't have to do that, but you should, and folks that are out there making a difference. And these agencies have the opportunity to really change the world. That's why we did the Ally program. We thought, hey, we can't do this alone. We're a nonprofit, mission-driven. We're trying to change the world, right? But we can't do it alone with 10 people. We need others. And so the Ally model that we created was, hey, listen, we know that you guys are on the forefront. You're working with the clients every day. There's not only is there opportunity fiscally to support your brands, but it's opportunity to do the right things and maintain that reputation and maintain that relationship by going to your client with a leadership position. And so we believe that really still is the future. I mean, we can't contact everybody.
Right.
Agencies have access. Agencies have that responsibility and that opportunity to truly shift the paradigm. But they have to do it in the right way.
Right.
So talk to me about, when we talk about the right way, talk to me about some of the things you learned, right? Because I want to hear about some of the things you've learned through the partnership. And then the other part is some of the challenges you're facing today. I want to hear about some of the challenges you're facing with some of your clients as well when it comes to accessibility.
Sure. I mean, the challenges are easy. It's that people don't want to pay for it because they're not aware.
Yep.
Right. And I think in general, the industry is shifting where things cost less than they used to. So in general, budgets are smaller. I think, the last year of economic uncertainty has also kind of affected that a bit. So that adds a level of challenge and complexity. People still have the mindset of, we want a flashy website. So we start every conversation with a prospect of saying, that we believe that websites are tools to solve business problems, not just flashy things that,
Mhm.
you know, have images that pop. And I think we're past that now.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be like your website is your business
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. And so the challenge there is communicating to people who don't think their customers have disabilities that they do, or they might. You know, say for example, I'm a B2B that wouldn't typically have folks with visual impairments visit my site. But now, because we've enabled folks to go to college and to learn and to be successful,
They
say
will be.
you're you know, a CEO of a company and you're the one that's going to that site,
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden you're not, you know, engaging that company anymore because you can't use the site. I think is a message that
Yeah.
people will probably be a harsh reality. Yeah, I think as people with disabilities are put in positions of influence and, you know, more
Yep.
as those numbers
That's a
grow.
really good point, man, because you're right. We are on a path, and that path is changing. And you're right. In 5-10 years from now, this whole world is going to be very different. So the budget thing is an interesting question or an interesting statement. And where do you see, is it like, because I talk to folks every day, and there's most of the cost issue, truthfully, from my perspective, comes in is that they thought they paid for it.
Right.
And they're like, well, I just paid my agency all this money, and they said they got it covered, and we're covered, and what you're not covered. And we do these accessibility scorecards, man. And I'll tell you, I mean, we've done thousands
plenty
of
of
them.
them, yeah.
We've seen plenty of them. I think if I did, I think I pulled the data on it, but I think out of a third of our customers that we work with today were told very clearly that they were fully accessible. Think about that. You're told something, and now all of a sudden you're not. So then you have a responsibility at that moment to do what? You can go back to your agency, and have a discussion.
I mean, that's what I would do.
Yep.
But that then requires an agency to be honest and genuine and open-minded and own that, or admit that they ran the site through a tester and it, air quotes again, worked for them.
Passed, yeah.
So it passed.
I mean, a lot of the automated tools say you do pass. They really do. And I get it. Like if I was there, I'd run it through a tool. It's free. Just tell me I'm good. But then it's like you got to peel back the cover. It's so much deeper. So talk about that usability aspect of it, because again, color contrast, basic, right? And I think it's basic. It's very basic. And truthfully, I'm 47. I wear glasses, and I get so frustrated when I can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't see. I struggle. Like there was a friend of mine has a coffee machine. I can't see the buttons from like a foot away.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see the buttons. I play PlayStation. I play online. It's fun. I can't see the screen. The fonts are too small. The color contrast is terrible.
Right.
Like it's just not part of it. And so even
Like
the
websites
basics
that have,
aren't
like white on a
with
white
yellow
background.
writing or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
and this is just basic. Forgetting about visual impairments or auditory impairment, just basic fundamental caring in some ways, or education. So talk to me about that. What do you say in the percentages that is, and this is probably an uncomfortable thing to ask, but when you think about, is it more of an uncomfortableness or an education thing? I'm interested in your perspective. Where do you find that? Do you find it gets more balanced on the I don't care part, or it's not our business part, or it's not a priority to us part, or is it like, I just didn't know this existed. I had no idea, because I was the I had no idea guy. Where do you think, in terms of your experiences, where do you think that falls?
I think largely it pretty falls in the I have no idea initially.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say this knowing that, you know, former clients, future clients, current clients may end up listening to this one day.
That's
right?
truth. I feel the same way.
You know,
But these are hard conversations that have to be had.
Some of it is, I wasn't aware, now I'm aware, it doesn't impact me.
Mhm.
I've checked the box.
Yep.
Right. And I want to get this site done, and I want it done for X amount of money. And I think the way that we can move the needle is by then coming to you and saying, okay, we have X amount of money to do a website.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they want it to be accessible or not, we want to bring you in and have you help us do that. Where do we cut corners? And I think the frustrating thing for clients is that you have a truly accessible website, you still have to cut corners on design sometimes, even slightly, because the headers are so important. So where you didn't want a header or a title before, you need it for the screen reader.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where clients get frustrated because now their site isn't as flashy as they want it.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go back to, well, what are your
See, I've
business
never
goals?
seen that. See, that's an interesting point that you bring up. Because John and I, when John and I went to John with this idea of building the brand to support what he was doing, and he and I used to joke and say, you know, accessibility is sexy. And it because my first thought was, well, we're going to turn this into a 2004 SEO friendly website that's all white with black text, no images, and that's not the case. And I always
It doesn't have to be the case.
no, it doesn't. And I always go back and look at our sites afterwards.
Mhm.
And I'll truthfully tell, I don't ever, rarely do I see a difference other than an improvement. So there's not like, oh, you're going to take my site and you're going to make it look different. It's like, that's not at all what's happening. A large percentage of it outside of is behind the scenes. It's the code, it's the content, it's the experiential pieces that are coded behind the scenes. So there is a misconception about an accessible website that doesn't have to be unappealing.
Right.
It doesn't at all, actually. If anything, it's going to make your experience better. That's where the usability piece comes in, right?
Right.
So it's compliance. Now, compliance may not be attractive, right? But you're going way beyond compliance. Way beyond. Compliance is like so fundamental baseline. I mean, the ADA was created 33 years ago, and it was updated when the iPhone came out 16 years ago.
Right.
So you got to look beyond just making sure that you're legally protected, but it goes back into this aspect of accessibility. So let me make sure I can access it.
Mm-hmm.
And let me make sure I can use it. And usability, when we say usability, it's not usability for folks with disabilities. It's usability, period, for all people.
Right.
And that piece is always missing. So your site's not going to go from, hey, this is a wonderful site, it's crazy awesome, to, well, it doesn't work anymore. It's going to make it better. You're going to get better SEO components, which we talked about. SEO is a huge component. You're going to get better usability. You should get better conversion rates. Everything is better.
Mm-hmm.
So, and potentially, well, not potentially, you're opening up your audience to people that never saw it before. So the business case for accessibility isn't really much of a case. It's just it's a no-brainer.
Right. Well, you mentioned Apple. You know, this was years ago now, but Tim Cook said, and I think Apple was one of the original leaders in accessibility. He said they didn't do it for the return on investment. They did it because accessibility should be a fundamental human right, which I think is
completely agree
where
with
we
that,
have to get people. But, you know, when we have conversations with clients, you know, oftentimes what we're trying to do is just get them to understand if they want like a website that looks like Apple's, for example. They have to pay a little bit of money like Apple did, you know, versus do you want a site that looks like it was, you know, designed on Wix that that my 5-year-old did.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and that's oftentimes, you know, what the budget is.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and you're right. That brings up a really good point because, and this to me, if agencies are listening into this, and hope the point is they will be, I think it's in our partners that are, it's getting ahead of it. Right, because where it can become expensive is, hey, I'm going to build this website for you. I don't know, 10 grand, 20 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand, whatever the number is. And I'm going to build it. And over the next 6 months, I'm going to spend all my time and effort building this site. We're going to go through a couple of remediations. But at the end of the day, here's your site.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I just get served a letter because I didn't do it the right way. Now I got to go backwards.
Yep.
And I got to test everything and then modify design, modify code, modify content, right? Yep. Instead, it's if you engage in it in the beginning with human testers and accessibility organizations that are certified and do it, it becomes part of your development process. Mm-hmm. So that to me is where the game changes. Now, remediation is one thing. I've got a website, it's 3 years old. I'm not going to spend any more money building a new website today, tomorrow, the next day. That's different. Let's go back and fix it. That's remediation. And that's a whole nother experience. But if you're building something
3 years
new,
old, you probably should think about building a new website.
Well, yeah. I mean,
for all those with 3-year-old websites.
Anyone, DesignHammer.com.
You're right.
Drupal experts. No, but the point is getting it in front.
Yep.
Right, because then that's different. It's a very different investment when you're beginning the process with testers and accessibility experts up front. And that even goes back into, again, designs, brand style guidelines, visual representation of the brand, wireframing, font selection, color choice, all that can be audited very quickly, by the way. It's not a huge lift to audit flat standards.
No, I mean,
right?
I
And then
think,
you roll it into the dev process.
yeah, I think we submit designs and wireframes to you guys and get them back in 48 hours.
Yep.
So it's not slowing down development,
That's right.
you know, and the plan typically is for while the client is testing a beta delivery or while we're doing user testing for, you know, a beta delivery, that Abler is also working through accessibility things, because at that point, since we've already agreed that the wireframes and the design concepts are accessible, then we're just on, you know, buttons, and have we done headings correctly, and, you know, is it easily clickable? We're not doing is the website usable? We've already validated that through designs and wireframes. So it streamlines the process more so than it slows down the process.
Yeah, incredibly streamlined. That's the whole
another
point.
misnomer.
Yeah,
right.
well, exactly. When you talk about the investment level that comes with it, if you do it up front, it's a better option, because then you get to the final staging aspects of the site, and all you have to do there is validate it. And so once it's validated, you can go live with a fully accessible site versus, hey, we're getting ready to go live. Let's get it live. Let's punch it out. We're live. Oh, we got to go back now. And remediating can take a long time. I mean, and that's an area where it's this education aspect. So a couple of things I want to ask you just real quick too is, well, one, I mentioned validation, and validation services that Abler offers, which is a lot of times in some agencies will do the work themselves. Organizations have testers, will do their work themselves. Validation services is something different. So if an agency's out there listening in and they've got testers and they feel like they've gone through the right process and they feel like they're dialed in and buttoned up, Abler can actually do validation service. So what validation is basically it's a retest of everything they've already tested.
Yep.
So have you done validation services? Or are you sort of the believer of upfront is better than post? It sounds like you're more of more of an upfront guy than going to post.
We prefer to be upfront. We're not always given that opportunity, obviously. We are a company that takes pride in our work. So even as we were building out a budget for this site that we're working on with you guys currently, Stephen had some time in the budget for him to do testing before he sent it to you guys. Because he said, we don't want to send them something really sloppy.
That's smart.
And I'm sort of the philosophy a lot of times where if they can do it faster and better than us,
yeah, why do it?
Why are we baking in our hours?
Truth. That's a good point.
When we can just send them something that may be sloppy, but that's what you're getting paid for.
Yep.
Right.
That's a good point.
Maybe I'm shameless. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, you might be. I mean, the fact that we're sitting here having this conversation and potentially shameless. I mean, look, the reality of it is that we're here having a conversation because this isn't about Abler per se. This isn't about DesignHammer per se or any of our other amazing agency partners that we work with. It's about raising awareness around a potential, well, not even a potential, a real problem. And there's a lot of misnomers. There's a lot of miseducation. There's a lot of mistakes happening. There's a lot of promises that are being under-delivered on. And there are a lot of potential clients and current clients that are being misled. And that, to me, is not benefiting anyone. It's not benefiting the agency, because if the agency CEO or the agency executive team hears that account people are offering these things and developers are offering these things and they can't back them up, that's not good for them. That's not good for the agency growth. That's not good for anybody.
Right.
It's definitely not good for the clients, because the clients are depending and trusting in this relationship, and then they're getting an end product that isn't accessible. And then it's not good for us, because I got to have the conversation with the company that just made this investment to tell them that it's not accessible. So it's not good for anybody to be making claims or promises without the proper education. And we got to get better at educating.
It's unfortunate that we are now getting into more and more when we write up contracts or statements of work, we're having to load our assumptions with what the website is not going to be as it relates to accessibility because of what you were talking about.
That is really smart, by the way. I do think we're on the right path to get to everywhere that we need to be in terms of inclusion and access. And I do. I think we're a few years away, and I think AI will play a major role in this down the road. Not right now. I think we're 3 or 4 years away, but we still need usability testers. We still need manual testing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see AI really detecting contrast issues.
I think the perfect blend is using manual testing 100%, and then baking in automated tools and monitoring tools and AI tools after the site is in a great spot to maintain its accessibility. So to me, it's always about fixing something versus covering it. And again, I'd rather do the job right. And yeah, and again, accessibility is not expensive. I mean, it's only expensive because you haven't budgeted for it or haven't thought about it.
Correct.
The other misnomer is it all has to be done tomorrow. And it can't be. I mean, you can't say, oh, my site's not accessible. Test it today, fix it tomorrow. That's why it's critical to have accessibility statements that are written by certified organizations. That's why it's important to have a certified company who lives and breathes this every day so it can help you write policies, help you write procedures, help make sure that not only is your website and your assets right, but your full business is accessible, right? And so that's why it's important. But one of the things I'm interested in your position, how have you seen the landscape change?
The world has changed, for one, which I think has forced the landscape to change. We sort of talked about that.
Yep.
Because DesignHammer talks about accessibility in every potential sales conversation we have, or we talk about it with existing clients, it's hard for me to see the trees through the forest, I guess, in that one.
Is it the forest through the trees?
It's both. It could be either.
Is it really?
Depends
Wow.
on your perspective.
You are insightful, man.
Like, we're so in the weeds that we
Yep.
don't see, the individual trees that are standing out. And it's frustrating for us when you have a client, a long-term client who, we had a call with a client who was very interested for a while until, they got legal involved. They had a new legal counsel come in. And then all of a sudden that conversation dried up. And I think somebody somewhere must have said, okay, we're not going to get sued. So we're fine. Let's move on. So that's frustrating. I think that's changing. People's perspective is changing. But again, I think it's going to take some major shifts, either, depending on the client, the industry. It's going to take a shift somewhere where somebody of influence, is able to make a decision.
Yeah.
John was successful in business before starting Abler.
Yep.
Worked for big companies.
Yep.
People like that to say, well, we're not going with X company because it is not meeting my needs, or it is not meeting the needs of my friend. Maybe friendships too.
Yeah.
I'm open to be educated on this, but I think it's hard to think about going through a day in the shoes of somebody with a visual impairment. I think you just can't do it. You talked earlier about the dartboard with Shannon, and I think even that experience isn't their experience.
One of the things I will give anyone listening to this, say hello to someone, open a door for someone, talk to someone, treat them like you treat everybody, befriend someone, go to communities and be part of something. I mean, it changes you. And I say this because, I had we started the company, it was hard for me initially, and it's not. But one of the reasons why I say this, one of my close friends who God rest his soul, passed away last year. His name was Chris, and he was a paraplegic. And I spent 2 years with him. And we had a lot of fun. Probably too much fun. But when you see and recognize, you have to be part of the life. Like, to me, you have to throw yourself into something that is uncomfortable. And to me, it was. And I met him one day, running one day. He was wheeling. He had a remote control, really cool scooter. And I decided at this red light, he couldn't get to the button to change it. It's a dangerous intersection. I got him over the intersection, and he started talking to me. And he was just started yammering. And I was like, oh, man, I'm not. And I said, you know what? I'm going to sit here, and I'm not going to run. I'm going to walk, and I'm going to talk. And he became my closest friend for 2 years. Yeah. And I did things that I never thought I would do. Bladder bags, changing out bags. I used to carry him, putting him in bed, doing things, just caring for someone. But the other part is it's just accepting them for like who they really are. Like, it's this whole and I get it's hard. I get it. I was there. It's hard. It's different. But ask the questions.
Right.
Why? What's it like having this? What does it feel like? How can I help you? Can I help you? Is it insulting if I put my arm on you? I mean, I still do that with John sometimes. We'll be walking through the airport or something. I'll just, I just put my arm on him, and it's just, but you have to talk. You have to ask questions. You have to be willing to be vulnerable, I think.
Ed Summers, who's kind of like
yeah, it's great, man.
The guru of web accessibility, at least in the triangle, if not the country. I remember him because I wrote it down and took a picture of the slides and think about it regularly as I think about.
So Ed was the, just for those listening, Ed was, he's now at GitHub as the head of accessibility, but he was the head of accessibility at SAS. And he's played a huge role in John's life and Abler's life. Great friend, great partner, but I just wanted folks to know that.
And I would say, DesignHammer's thinking as well, but something that he said during last year's Global Accessibility Day was all this technical stuff, all this great stuff, but the one that really stuck out to me was that progress trumps perfection. It's something that we probably think about, we say all the time, and it's kind of pithy, but this is the...
You think about it, it's not.
Right. This is the non-DesignHammer making money pitch to people, is that his point was people, I think, often get paralyzed because they think, okay, our website's so messed up that we just can't afford to go back and remediate the site. But he's saying as long as every software update or every, content change is getting better,
that's right.
That's better than doing nothing.
Progress,
right? You're making progress. And I think that is what I would say to clients or people who have websites, that they realize, they're not perfect. They're not accessible.
Just take a step.
Yeah.
Do something.
Take a day and put all the alt tags in your images. Take a day and look at your links and see if they're easily accessible. Run your site to a screen.
Good start. Absolutely.
Start somewhere.
Yeah.
And then when it's time to do something bigger, bring in somebody like DesignHammer who's thinking about accessibility. Ask your agency, are you using somebody like Abler or somebody who knows how to do this and has folks who are living that life? I think that's, you can't replace the manual testing ever. I'm a firm believer in that.
We've talked a lot about today about misnomers and about education and about a lot of good intentions with potentially some poor outcomes. But why do you think, and just to wrap it up, as an agency should align with a certified accessibility company like Abler or another organization like them while they're in the process and supporting their clients?
I think at the end of the day, it's because meeting accessibility guidelines it checks the box, right? But it doesn't actually complete the journey. We were talking earlier about usability for people with disabilities. You need people with disabilities using the site to validate that the site is usable. If you want something that just checks a box so the government's happy, then, we may not be the company for you. Abler may not be the partner for you. And that's a shame, I think. And hopefully that's changing. But we see the value in people who live and experience that every day, whose life that is to have to go through, being the key to making an accessible website. And that's not just on the technical code, what DesignHammer does side. That's also on the, you've had a website for a couple of years, you've got all this content. Is the content accessible? Because I think, there's a large percentage of the time that it's the content that isn't accessible, not the actual footprint behind, or the, the blueprint of the website. And that's the part, I think, where even, take DesignHammer out of the picture, companies going to Abler and saying, how's my content? What do I need to do to make this site more accessible to people who struggle to see or can't see?
Well said, man. Hey, Dave, thanks so much, man. Very grateful for you being here. Awesome time. Thank you, DesignHammer, as well. What is it? DesignHammer.com? What is your URL?
DesignHammer.com.
DesignHammer.com.
Yep.
Great firm, but great people. And that's really a big part of what Abler is about, the experience. Where your life is short and you get to work with people. You should choose people you like. And DesignHammer is a great firm. So I appreciate you being here, man. Really good insights. Thank you so much.
And I would say our blog is a great place for resources. David's written, I think, dozens of articles on accessibility. And he's very well written and well versed. So if folks are just wondering, how do we get into this? Obviously, Abler's a good place, but I think there's a ton of good resources. There are accessibility on our blog. So check that out.
Awesome, man. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in today's conversation with Dave Shepley on Access Granted. His expertise as a development strategist at DesignHammer has given us invaluable insights today into what prioritizing accessibility at a digital agency actually looks like. Big thanks to Dave for sharing his knowledge, and to you, our listeners, for joining us. Don't forget to follow along for more engaging content and keep advocating for accessibility in everything you do.